Hello everyone, this is Piano Psychopath. It's been a while since I've done a long form video like this that's not a live stream or a short. So, purpose of this, show y'all how I did these Divine Beasts. And hopefully it should be pretty short, but pretty simple. Took me a long time to figure this out. It'll take you a while to actually do because there's a lot of steps to do. So let's get to it. Alrighty, and to get started, you're going to need a couple of different tools. You're going to need Blender 3.6 is the version that I'm using, and you're also going to need Blender 2.8. You're also, for Blender 2.8, you're going to need MCBlend, which is a add-on, and I'll show you all how to install it, or it should be pretty simple to install. You're also going to need Amulet, the editor. You'll have to look that up. I'll link all of these in the description. You're going to need Mineways, and you're going to also need Blockbench. Those are the only tools you're going to need. You might also want to use Visual Studio Code or some other coding IDE like Note++ or the Microsoft editor or whatever you use. So the first step is to get a model. And now I'm not starting from a model, so we're building a model in the game. From here, you're going to use Amulet to chop it up, and something like this right here, this Nadra chopped up. Only problem is that when you do this, it creates holes. You could build it already chopped up, like I have here, Dinroll, and we have the thing sealed off. Now, if you're chopping it up and you fill in your holes, sometimes, if you know your joint is going to be moving at a pretty significant angle, you might want to add a little bit of extra material to each joint. And so like this right here is actually attached at, I think this block right here goes right into this red section. So normally you won't see this, but if it's bent at a certain angle, you might see a little bit of it. It's just so it doesn't look so so blocky, so choppy. And I also recommend that you have a standardized number between your joints. So in my case, I like 3 because it's easy to count to 3, right? So each of these joints are separated by 3. Now you don't have to always use that, but it's just a good idea to have a easy number to remember that you always use. So in this case, 3 wasn't enough, so I used 20 here, and then I believe this is 5, and then 5 again. These are separated by 3. It just makes it easier for you in the future when you're going to have to reassemble this whole thing in Blender. So remembering the numbers or remembering how it's supposed to look like, it makes it a lot easier. Also, there's some shortcuts you can take if you do this with a standard number. Alrighty, this tool here is Amulet. I'm not going to show you how it works because that's not the purpose of this video. But with this tool, you'll use this to either chop up your model however you need to and move things around. And you'll also use this tool to convert from Bedrock to Java. So I'll show you how to do that right here. Let's open to the convert. You have your world, your Bedrock world, select your output. It has to be a Java world. You don't need to own Java. You just need an empty Java world. In this case, I use this one right here. I call Qt Paint because this is 1/4 the size of Hyrule, which took a week just to render in the game. So we hit convert, and it doesn't really take that long. Mine takes a little longer because of how massive it is. And we're basically done with Amulet. You'll never have to ever touch this again. Alright, the next step is to open up Mineways. It's pretty easy. File, open world, go to the world that you had. Qt pane was the one that I selected. Let's full screen this. It's going to take a second because this is a massive world. Usually doesn't take this long if it's smaller. Because it's a large world, I'm going to have to do a couple of things first. Like jump focus view right here. And I know my models are at 0, 0. Let's go there. There we go. And so we select the model that we need. We want, let's take Valrudania. Oh, this is a warning I get because of the conditions of Hyrule. We select that, make sure everything's in it. Go to File, Export for rendering. Then you'll save as an OBJ. Make sure you have a good naming conventions for these. So we'll name this Rudania.obj and save. Ignore all of this. Just press OK. And it exports. And you're done. Alright, the next step is to open up Blender. Whatever your latest version of Blender is. I would recommend using 3.6 just because any future updates might not be compatible with this tutorial. So select off to the side, select all these objects, press delete, go to File, Import OBJ. You'll import the OBJ you exported from Mineways. In this case, it was Rudania.obj. It might have some articles from your world. That's not an issue. It's a pretty easy fix. You want to go to Edit mode. Select all those stuff that you don't want. And so, here's an issue. See how that I selected these objects, right? If we look underneath, it didn't select everything. So, on the top right, there's this little sphere, which is your viewport shading, and you want to select this one right here, which is your X-ray. So when you select everything, it will select everything. And you can tell how orange it is, that we selected everything. Press delete, select vertices, delete this one as well. Now the next step, select all of this. Once you selected all of this, or all of your objects, press P, and then do by loose parts. So now, each single object on here is its own object now. So you're going to want to, you don't have to stay in this specific viewport shading, but if you want to look at your model with its texture, you can do that now. You want to go back to object mode too. So you want to go to each object, selecting them and renaming them. You want to have some sort of convention of naming these. So for example, I'm going to name this one Arm1R because 1 is the closest to the main center. It's on the right side, and it's arm because it's the upper arm, or the upper limb. You can come up with any other methods of naming. I just recommend you name it in a way that it's short, but also in a way that a stranger could come back and understand what body part it is. Alright, now reselect everything. Make sure you have everything selected. Hit left click, set origin to geometry, and from here you're able to reattach your object. And remember how I said that it's important to have a standardized number. This is because you can do shortcuts like this by moving two arms at the same time. And as you move, I also recommend holding control because that lets you move everything one block at a time instead of millimeter at a time. And you could do it that way, but you might not want to do it this way, just because you might have a gap or it might be too close, other for whatever reason, right? So you just go through all of these, put them together. Alright, now once you have all of your objects put together like this, and you've renamed all of your objects as well, you're going to need to do a couple of things with the texture. So first thing, you're going to want to go to shading. Actually, no, it's texture paint. You want to go to image, create a new image. Now, depending on the size of your object, Redania is pretty big, so 1024 is about the good size. If it's something smaller, maybe go 512 or 256. I also recommend going by multiples of 16. I don't recommend any other number, just because you'll get issues where the textures are cut off by a pixel, so you'll be able to see through the model. So once you create your image, just rename it to whatever you need to name it as. I'm going to name it Rudnia because I already have the Rudania image here. You want to go to shading, and you're going to want to add texture, image texture. Now here you select open, or you can do select, or the one that you want to actually do is this little image. Go to the one that you just created, so Rudnia, right? And that's it. So go through each, on the top right, you'll want to go through each object where you see this material. Select the material and do it again. So add the texture, image texture. Now that's a little slow, and I'm pretty sure there's a faster method. Just select it, copy it, go through each material on the right here, and just paste it in. So select, go back here, select here, go back here, and you keep doing that until you have all of these have that node. Now if you ever modify your model in Blender itself, you're going to have to basically do it all over again for that object. Since we made this outside of Blender, all of these have the same materials, so it's not really an issue. You can go here and look at all your materials, but all the materials you're going to need are already here, so all of them are going to have this node that we created. Alright, your next step is to go to UV editing. On here on the right, you're going to open up object mode, select your model, then go back to edit mode, press A, so you'll select all of these. Now hold Control U, or just press U, I'm sorry. Do unwrap, and this always takes a minute depending on the size and complexity of the model. Press U, do light matte pack. Pack quality, you want it to be max. Leave this alone. New UV map, yes. And then press OK. Now on this image here, look, you're going to see a bunch of little squares. On the right, this little radio box looking thing. Your default is going to be Eevee for render engine. You're going to want to select cycles. If you got a good GPU, select the GPU, or if you'd rather pick the CPU, doesn't really matter, just faster. Here are the settings that you're going to want. I don't remember exactly the reasons why certain things are the way, just faster and don't take as long, because you don't need to see everything as it's working. That's basically the rundown of that. So noise threshold 0.1, max samples 1, denoise yes. This should be automatic, albedo, and then start sample 1. Your render is going to be 128. Ignore everything else. You go back down to where it says bake. You want diffuse. Nothing else. Make sure you select the direct and indirect as off. Your image texture is going to be image textures. Make sure it's clear image. And for adjacent faces, I believe the default is 16. You want it as 1 pixel. And from there, it's all good, so press the bake button. And now this, depending on the size again, just really depends how much time it will take. But you can see it already, it's already texturing it all in. We can select off on the side, you can see it working. This usually takes about 10 minutes, so maybe make yourself a tea or coffee or something. Alright, so now the baking has been completed. You want to go to image and then save as image and save it somewhere safe. Make sure you remember where it's at. It's going to become important in a bit. So we're basically done with Blender 3.6. We don't have to ever come back to this. Now, the next step is to open up Blockbench. You'll want to go to Generic Model, Create New Model. You can ignore this, so just confirm, I guess. Go to File, Import, OBJ Model, and then select your exported model that you created, and this might take a second. Alright, now that's done. So here you have your model. You can see on the right your folders. You're not going to have any folders on the right. So you're going to want to create a folder for each model. So for example here, finger D to L. And this is how you're going to rig the model. So move your object there. Let's create another group. Its name is arm1r. And so since you want, sometimes you might want a bone to be attached to another bone. So we'll make this a child of this one. Oh, it's already. Make that a child of this one, and then you can do that for all the objects. For your texture, go here on the left, import your texture. And it'll be right here. Select everything, so Control A, and just drag it onto whichever object you like. So if we select off onto the right or anywhere else, you can see all your textures are here. So once you've created all of your files or folders for each individual model, you're going to want to select everything. And it's freezing up on me because it's ridiculously massive. Control A. You want to press this little button here that says Sever Center Pivot. And then from there you want to also manually go back and modify where exactly the joints are going to be. So for example here on the top, we're going to select this pivot tool. On these joints, this is the center of action of where this model is going to move around. So it's going to move here. That's kind of bad, so we don't want that, right? So we go back to pivot tool, move it closer to where it's actually connected to the parent is what I recommend connecting stuff to, not the child. So now when we rotate this, it's actually a little bit better. Now it's not going to rotate this much, but it's better than having it rotate in the center of the object. And once you do that, you're basically ready for animation. So I already have this set up. And your animations can be made manually, or if you want to use a .anim to Bedrock JSON. I am working on a streamlined version of my script, so you just import the animations into the model, as long as they have the same name as the objects. So you can see here, I have some folders that don't have any objects inside of them. This was just done just because it's easier to animate. So if you have a group here, and then I have arm here, the whole arm. But I know that I also have arm 1L that does the same thing, but this is just easier to work with, which I also recommend you do, is you have a main group that doesn't have any objects in it. So once that's done, you can also paint the texture if you need to. You want to go to File, Convert Project, go to Bedrock Legacy Model, create copy. Yes, you want to create copy, and always make backups of everything you do. Anytime you do right before you're about to do something, save. So press confirm. And this also depends on how long or how big the model is. Now you're going to notice that your model completely disappeared, but we don't care about that. What we care about are these folders that we made. And all we have to do now is just export this as a Bedrock entity. And that's basically all you have to do with Blockbench. Alright, so now the last step is to open up Blender 2.8 using 2.8 select all your stuff. For importing scripts, you're going to want to go to Edit, Preferences, you know the word I'm trying to say. You go to Install, and then you select wherever you downloaded your MCBlend as a .zip. So I already have it, so I don't need to do that. Alright, so now that once you have MCBlend set up, we want to go to Import Bedrock Model, and you're going to import the converted JSON file that you exported from Blender. And so you're going to see that there's nothing there, and that's fine. You look closely though, you'll see these little triangles everywhere. Those are your pivot points that you made in Blockbench. So go back, import OBJ. This is going to be the OBJ that you exported from 3.6 Blender, the one that you imported into Blockbench and made all your files with. Now, you might have to play around with the rotations, just depending on how you did this. Easiest way to do this first is select this little stickman, that's your bones, and then you can go to this little square and rotate on the Z-axis. So this is indeed backwards. Just double click on here, 180. You might have to come back to this depending on which direction it's facing when you actually import it into Minecraft. So before you export anything, just save it. But this is pretty much it. The last thing you need to do is you want to open up this stickman, go to Pose, and on the top left it should say Pose Mode. So these little triangles here, you want to drop down the models. So here we have waist. Hold Control, select this waist, or on the model here, so you'll see it selected. Hold Control and then press P, and then Bone Relative, and then you'll see that it's connected there. It's not going to tell you that it's connected directly to it, but just go through all of these one by one And I'm sure there's a faster way to do this. Just haven't figured it out yet. So these are all the folders that you need in Workbench. So wrist L here, Control P, and then just do that for all of your objects. Alright, once you have all of your objects attached to the stickman, rename your stickman, it should say unknown to whatever. And you're also going to need to go through each one. Let's bring this up on the right. Go to your... Oh wait, make sure you're in object mode. Select your object. The little square thing. And they're all going to say cube. You want to select PolyMesh. So each single one of these triangles should say PolyMesh. And none of them should say cube. And once you got that done, go to File, Export as a... Wait, select your stickman. File, Export as a Bedrock model. And once you do that, you're all done. You don't have to do anything else with any other tools. Except making your files, I guess. Alright. Now the final step is to create your resource pack and behavior pack. I'm not going to show you how to do that exactly. It's pretty simple, but I mean you have your manifest file. Name it whatever you want. Make sure you have a unique UID. So here's the files you're going to need to mess with. You might not need to do this every time, just depends on the size. Valridania is stupidly massive, so there's a few extra steps we need to do. First things first, you're going to need to go to Entity. If you're using a massive entity, you're going to need to use the Ender Dragon as your entity. You can't use a custom entity, unfortunately. That's just how it is. And you're going to need to use the Ender Dragon. And I'll show you all how I set this up. So don't copy exactly what I'm doing. It's just because I have so many models tied to the Ender Dragon, it just looks like this. All you're going to need is this, or in this case, name it Valridania. Make sure everything is exactly spelled correctly. Everything has the same name, because if you have one letter off or something's a capital letter, it's just not going to work. Also, same thing with the geometry. You only need one, unless you're doing multiple like I'm doing. Valridania. And then for animations, copy my scripts. Or if you know how to do animations already in Minecraft, you don't have to copy that. Here, render controllers. Again, if you're doing multiple, copy this. But if not, you can pretty much leave this as the vanilla version, or just do this. Just keep this one. Just copy that one if you just need one. And then from here, get rid of out of there. We go to textures, and make sure that the texture file is in the same place as listed in your entity file. So mine is in Divine Beast. I named mine TGA files, it's just a fancy PNG, but I mean they're right here. Then from there you'll go to, I'm still in the textures files. Go back to the main file, go to render controllers, your Ender Dragon render controller. Here you have all your render controllers. You just need one of these. So in this case, Valridania here. Texture Valridania and geometry Valridania is important. You're also going to need your model. This is the model you export it from Blender 2.8, and in this case it is Redania MC. Now whenever you first open this, it's going to say unknown. Just make sure you rename it to whatever you renamed it in your entity file. Your animations will go here, and your animation controllers will go here, and you're pretty much done. You might need to modify your behavior pack for the Ender Dragon if you're using multiple models as well, like using the mark variant component. Otherwise, if you're using a custom entity, that's pretty much it. That's the end of the tutorial. I'll try to answer questions for as long as possible, and I might update this tutorial in the future once I find out more improvements. Like, you'll notice that your textures are always going to be a single color. They're not going to be the block textures. Another thing is, I believe there's a way to decrease the size of my texture pack, or the texture of the model. There's also improvements that I can make on the speed of some of the tasks, like attaching or posing the model. I feel like that could probably be done automatically with the script, maybe. I have not yet experimented with it, but once I do, I'll probably release it in the Discord. So if you want to have the latest tool or see what's going on with the project, or any of my other programming scripts, they're going to be in the Discord. And thanks for watching. I hope this tutorial is useful in helping you create something wonderful.